Yeah, so it seems we are live now.
We've got this idea, this discussing the needs of the networks, which I thought is a good agenda point. And my agenda point is very similar to that, and that is discussing why would people use these technologies? What's the benefits for them? What's the drivers to get people using these technologies?
Yeah, so it seems we are live now.
We've got this so I think we started to touch on this and talk about it a little bit on Facebook. And there's, you can have the most amazing technology, but why would people use it? You can have this most beautiful.
It seems we are live now.
Shane, you probably have the window open on the live retransmission because you were the only one with this who wasn't muted, and there's a next.
So I think we started to touch on this and talk about it a little bit on Facebook. So I've shut all my windows. You can have the most amazing technology.
Oh, so but, would that be me?
Why would people use it?
Would
you can
that
have this
be
most
me?
beautiful.
Shane, you probably have the window. Oh, it was me. Ha ha ha. Okay, I shut it. Go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, I mean, there's already been some discussion on the Facebook group about having the most eloquent, perfect technologies, but then there's the human element to this. Is why would people use it, and how would people use it? And I'd just like to get some thoughts. We have to have a motivator. We have to have something that drives people to use these technologies. Not just the fact they don't like Facebook or they don't like proprietary technology. It has to be something that is a purpose, a reason, something that an objective that people are trying to fulfill. And if we can get the right set of reasons, the right set of objectives, then people start to use it. Yeah, that's essentially what I want to say.
But could we remind ourselves of the purpose of the network of networks, because then everything derives from there, I suppose. Did we write this somewhere?
No, and I honestly don't think we've had a really deep conversation about this.
Yeah, I think that the purpose has to be connected strictly with the needs.
Yes. So
if we don't speak about the needs and why why we're trying to do this thing, what did we see as a lack that this organization could somehow, fill in? What kind of needs there are in the networks to have these meta or superstructure, whatever we will choose to create, to support them, to connect them, to do what? I mean, which is the thing that is missed.
I think what I could say is that from what we are seeing in the past few weeks and months is that there are networks of networks and networks connecting all over the place, and there's a need for some, as you said earlier, Simona, the needs to connect some form of fluidity and to connect the people and to keep track of yes, who's doing what, meeting, who you can connect with, and what's going on, and how the work can converge, basically. I mean, that's what I'm feeling, and so it's more about how do you achieve connection and networking across the board than to actually define one network of networks with a fixed list of people, because this doesn't happen. We've been trying to say, well, okay, let's fix a list, but it's totally like we're swarming, but we're swarming by subgroups. You know, there's a cluster going here and there and associating in this group and then in the other group. And this is what we have trouble keeping track of. That's the feeling that I'm getting.
Oh yeah, no. Can I please add something? I don't know if you hear me. Okay, so my right after this conversation, I will have a talk with an advocate to create an organization which I am working on for a very long time, and it's got many different angles. Very important elements about it are the buildup of knowledge. I think a lot of the conversations about what should happen to the world are continuously repeated because people meet again and again and again, and it's difficult to build on knowledge. It's there are a lot of tools being created, but still they don't circulate fast enough, I think, and there is no sense of overview. There is no all conversations are fragmented. They are not continuing. So what happens is it doesn't really build up. It's starting every time again and again and again. There's so many good workshops. There's so many good meetings, but there's no line to be pulled through them. As you said, there's different clusters meeting all the time on different places, but something like the tools might help to create something like a common base, a place to return to, sort of build up these issues and knowledge. And there is a limit to what can be done by the internet, but a lot more is possible than what is possible right now, because there is not a good categorization of information. There is not a good way. There are not really good tools about knowledge management. There is something like Quora.com, which is a question answering website, which has as its basic mission is to build a repository of knowledge. There's Wikipedia, but it's very static knowledge. It's not active knowledge. It's not knowledge that really allows people to build a new movement, to bring people together. Facebook groups are used for that purpose, but they're not effective for it because it only contains a list of messages, and once your message sinks into the bottom, probably it will get lost in the flow of information. Same for forum software. Forum software hasn't been updated for like 10 years, and it's a disaster because there are so many discussions that have like 10% of the posts in a forum often is kind of useful, but there's no way to really relate within conversations, like where is the meaningful debate going on. You have to read everything.
So what's the suggestion?
Well, I have a presentation on how I would see the technology change. That's one thing. But I'm also thinking about this organization that I'm building, which is much broader in scope, even in the sense that my basic mission is creating a platform for effective change and deeper quality, which is a very broad sentence, but the main thing is to create all the elements that are necessary to build on this kind of knowledge and to create a kind of common language, common policy, common idea structure.
We were talking about using things like GitHub that people could, fork and merge. I don't know if it was in this group or another one, because I'm involved in a certain number of networks and networks of networks and stuff, but it was part of a conversation. That was exactly the point, that people couldn't build on what was being worked on, and so the issue was to find the tools and the platforms in order to create this repository, and GitHub was a possibility in some of the conversations, or something that can enable swarming, assembling, reassembling, disassembling, and not being enclosed into a particular platform, like people bringing their stuff into something which is neutral.
Yeah. GitHub is actually an open source development tool, a place where people post their data, I guess, of software they're developing, or is it being used for other aims as well?
It's also increasingly being used for editing, and GitHub are developing further tools for being able to use it a little bit more. And for example, people like Clay Shirky were advocating the use of GitHub to conceive law, for example. So that's typically not software, but there are also projects of people working on other types of repositories that can be used. For example, we're working on a pattern language for systemic change, and we're using a tool like Debate Graph, which enable math and stuff.
I know this is going to be very easy for us to slip into discussions about the technologies, and I think to a certain extent it's relevant to do that. I'm just thinking, is there any more needs or purposes that we can discuss before we go too deep into
it might be nice. I'll try and forward a mail of basic structures I saw already in the organization I would like to build, and maybe that will also help. But I guess it's best if I talk to you in person, Shane, one moment, so we get like a common understanding. Also live. I'll talk to you about it later on.
Yeah, I mean, just to say that Eric wants to help set up an organizational structure for us, and you know, I'm keen. If Eric's keen to do that, then I'm keen to support that. And so we're thinking of having another discussion about what the organizational structure for this group would be, and that would be on Monday at 1 o'clock. And of course, it's an open discussion. I have some more things about purpose and needs to come back to that discussion. One, I think we've covered lots of the things that I completely agree with when we're talking about the fragmentation and all the different needs that people discuss. One need that I think is quite important for me is this kind of critical mass of change makers. This kind of you know, there's lots of reasons why we might want to reach a critical mass in the kind of change maker community, and one of those is to counterbalance the kind of the other kind of hierarchical commercial and corporate structures to influence the future. You know, essentially, I think there's a kind of struggle going on. But another one is so that we can have collective visions and collective understanding of where we want to go. But yeah, so this is one of the other kinds of purposes that I think we need to be working towards.
Yeah, and another thing I see is also to bring together the tools that already exist. I'll give like an example. Things like U-theory or dragon dreaming or nonviolent communication maybe, or sociocracy, or these are all kind of tools that are being used in the field, and it's like everyone knows some of them, but not many know the most, like the most fundamental ones are not well known by everyone, and they're not easily combinable either. They're very different in structure, very different in their approach, but somehow there's a value in all of them, and it's somehow to bring them together and to make something workable out of it that might, yeah, like there's many different governance tools that exist. I've discovered a list of it on the P2P Foundation, for instance. But how how could they be combined as maybe one system, or how can we deal with this kind of complexity that of all these systems together, and how can they relate to each other? This kind of question I have as well.
Yeah, Eric, what you
Yeah.
found on the P2P Foundation is just a small part of the methodology used to structure and to manage organizations.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's much more to investigate, but
Yeah.
I think one important stuff is also to understand if we want to be a structure, a Sovra structure, so someone that is providing a solution for these needs that we are individuating now and proposing it from outside into the networks, or contacting people that they are already in the networks. So if these persons that they are already in the networks, then they will spread within the network they are active in, the solutions that we create together now to these needs. Or this is the first option. So we create here together some solutions, and then each one of us that is part of one network goes in his own network, her own network, and tells, okay, I have this range of solutions for these needs. This is one approach. And then there is another approach that is like activating a process to make the networks answering autonomously to these lacks, or maybe, you know, start up also a kind of need assessment in our organizations, in our networks, in the networks we are connected with. So it's also how we want then to provide solutions to the needs we individuate, and that it can be connected with the structure building. So I usually don't like Sovra imposed structures. So someone that comes and tells, okay, to do this we need this, and apply a model that is pre-constituted. But I would prefer, you know, to make it also.
I mean, myself, like, just to like differentiate this kind of network of networks, I would really like that myself we don't focus on particular solutions, because many people focus on that, and for example, just focus on this cross-pollination, or more like creating opportunity to find synergies, because I think on this level would be like suboptimal to focus on particular solutions, because, you know, there's 10,000 solutions to the same issues, and for me it's more interesting how to work on these fragmentations, these isolations of the workflows, and also how to make the collaboration more open, that people can more easily jump to different groups, you know, make the designs modular and so on. So it's not for me about answering particular issues, particular solutions, just enabling people to have more opportunity to arrive at those solutions, to like more open collaboration. So again, for me, the distinction not to focus on particular problems and particular solutions, other than the problem of collaboration and networking itself.
Oh, sound is going.
Okay, so how you want to do that? You will.
Okay.
So again, we can come up with different ways to addressing that. Just I would like to separate concerns, that we don't try to get into certain details, because we don't try to address too many concerns at the same time, and it becomes very problematic. So that's why I would like that we can try kind of narrow the concerns we try to work with, and sort of delegate the workflows on the more particular concerns, for other working groups, for other networks, for other communities, and just try to focus on which things we put in a scope, and which we try to kind of say that's out of scope just because we will get too blurry if we try to and for me, this is we have actually
I'm not getting much connection right now. No sound at all.
Hello, I lost connection for a while there. Are we still all on the call? Do you want to just wave if you're on the call?
Yeah.
Helen, are you here? Pavlik, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So
I don't know after my
Go ahead, please.
Go ahead. So I think I may have got others lost after I started talking about separation of concerns and trying to narrow in which concerns we work with. And so one of the kind of practical examples I would find interesting that there are many different gatherings of different communities. So next month there's Open Knowledge Foundation Festival in Berlin. There's Global Village Network conference near Berlin. There's Dragon community meeting like Confest or something like that. There will be Edge Riders meeting in October, and so on and so on. So what we could do, we could try to compile a calendar where different communities have their kind of like annual gatherings, and for example, make it more visible. I see others that say make sense camp or something happening around me. So a few things are not specific issues to work with, but more like making it easier to have an overview where different somehow connected communities and networks have in real life events. So that would be like one of the practical examples of the scope of what I would see as one of the network of networks operations.
Right. So it sounds really, something about it sounds very innovating, the idea that the objective is to kind of break down the barriers to collaboration rather than focusing on specific needs. It sounds quite old school, quite traditional way of approaching things, to narrow down needs and then try and create an objective. So, and what you're suggesting sounds very much more future thinking, the way we're just trying to reduce the barriers, we're not trying to dominate a particular space or anything like that. And I think this kind of thinking has a really strong attraction to a very small audience. So I'm thinking of an audience that are on this edge, and I'm wondering what kind of attraction it has to that much larger audience that we want to engage. How does this engage the masses of networks into connecting up?
It's clear. I mean, to have a wider and bigger impact on the reality, as we are all fragmented at this point, there are practices going on that they are affecting the reality and they're creating a change. But if we gather all together and we, as a strength, then the aim and the interest of all the networks of gathering together and making these, common actions is to spread wider and faster and more in a more effective way. It's like creating a whole that can be shown, and so for the change. I mean, all these networks, they work for the same reason.
Can I step in for a minute here, because this has been the subject of my research for a certain number of months and years, and the conclusion that I came to, more or less, is that it's super difficult to coordinate on direction, and that the coordination necessarily is an emergent one. And so after trying to set up platforms and places where people would gather, I'm starting to look at possibilities where it's not the gathering of the people that's at the onset. It's actually the coalescence. It's actually the coalescence of the efforts or of the outcomes that needs to be looked at and to be sought out. And so there's so many different ways that people enter and engage themselves, that if you try to find an overarching principle and an overarching vision, or you never get people to agree. So the idea here, and what we're trying to bring together, and maybe this could be something that the networks can participate in, is to build a pattern language to create building blocks at different levels of abstraction, where it can be then translated into different types of narratives, and the actions of the various networks could be hooked to that. So I don't know if I'm very clear, but I have some documentation on that. And that is something that can be rolling on its own, and that networks can appropriate themselves. That's a way of doing this, but I'm not very sure that we can create a structure, one structure that is going to do everything that we said we wanted to do, because structure derives from worldview and from perspective. And so you have X forms of structures that people feel comfortable with. And so can we look at other ways of bringing networks together? Pattern language is maybe one way. There may be other ways, and maybe this is also what the network of networks can reflect upon. I'll provide the link to what I've been doing on the window here.
I think it'd be useful if you know, I think this idea of breaking down the barriers of being able to collaborate is very powerful in many ways, and I'm just not seeing how we get that to the point where we can engage the masses. And so maybe then I need to be, you know, maybe it could be written down in a few words or something, as some kind of explanation of how it all hangs together, or we can discuss it now. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking, what are the other ways that can break the barriers without requiring people to agree on a roadmap, agree on a purpose, agree on things that are by essence divisive? So what are all the forms of breaking the barriers that enable composing, recomposing, swarming, reclustering, declustering, hooking, bringing your stuff, taking the stuff, pushing, pulling, etc.? I think we need to think in fluidity terms, not in classical terms of we put everybody in a room or on a platform or in a place and then we decide something, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of pushing the thing a bit far off, but and I'm sorry because I wasn't there for 10 minutes, so I hope I didn't kind of come and...
Pavlik, are you still there?
No, I made him leave, maybe. I don't know. I made him leave.
No, I'm still here, just I make noise.
Oh, okay, yeah, because sorry, Pavlik, I didn't hear what you said, so I hope I didn't kind of... yeah, bring a mess in the discussion.
No worries.
So, Pavlik, I mean, you and Helen seem to be talking about similar things, and Simona was also very, you know, supportive of the idea that this breaking down of the barriers is, you know, defragmenting all of the existing movements rather than trying to create a new movement, in a way. But I'd like. Do you have any ideas of how? Why would people? Yeah, I'm just not quite seeing how we get this from being the fringe group of people that intellectualize these things, that like these things, through to the mass group of change makers that we need to engage.
Maybe we can think of stuff like breadcrumbs, you know? Like if we create building blocks, like if we manage to mobilize enough people to create building blocks of things that can be assembled and reassembled, and then that people can take ownership of and seize and then build from, So it comes back to what Eric was saying, a form of repository of stuff.
Could I jump in here?
So that's what we're trying to do here. But I mean, it can be done in several places. That's where I put all the reflections and the research and stuff.
Helen, we've got a new voice here, so yeah.
Hi. Yeah, I heard you talking about want to bring it down from the intellectual level and you know, actually have people who are not interested in the theory benefiting from it.
Yeah.
It seems very important to me.
Well, it's the key because there's a very big divide between the people who think the theory and the people on the ground.
Yes.
And that gap needs to be filled. And there's this Brett Victor guy who does really great stuff, and he's talking about the different levels of abstraction, and you need to go from the highest level and down and down and down and down. And that's the goal that we would have with the type of pattern language, to try and map out various levels from the most abstract, which is the one that can be divided into the various structures and worldviews, etc., and then go down the various levels into the very concrete stuff where you hook the actual solutions on the ground to the building blocks and how they manifest themselves in reality.
Okay, that won't work.
That won't work?
It definitely won't work.
Okay, well, you suggest something then.
I would suggest... Okay, have a network of networks. I would suggest starting with a particular specific network that would like to network with another specific network, figuring out how you can get those two coordinate and collaborate a little bit better. And then while you have at the topmost abstraction, you have stuff going on, and that feeds back and forth between the very, very concrete level, which does not have any graph, it does not have any theory, it's just people working together. And that's the basic way that you take.
I hardly hear you. It's all chopped up, so I didn't kind of get your point here, unfortunately.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you write it down in the chat box? Because
yes.
Or I don't know what the problem is, but I didn't quite get. Yes, you said two networks.
Okay, you carry on talking. I'll type it into the chat.
Okay. Yeah. But just to say one thing is that there's not one truth. So, you know, we're all working on one piece of a thing that has its interest. And the important thing is that we all get to the same place eventually in the end.
Yeah, when I look at this work that we're doing, I'm always wondering about how we engage people. And when we look to the models like Facebook, the success of things like WordPress, for example, they all started with a very simple kind of thing that you can use, and they reach a critical mass in that group. And then the complexity grows. Slowly they add in layers of complexity. And I really feel like starting from quite abstract levels, we risk that initial engagement of the, we risk being too complex to engage people. We need to excite people. When I look at the way that Transition Network started, it's just a kind of idea that conceptually excites people, and people realize they can do something, and it's the idea is perfect for the moment. You know, in our place and our time, you have certain ideas that were perfect for 2008, and then you have certain ideas that are perfect for 2014, and they capture the imagination of people. And so while I realize by doing that you exclude certain people because not everybody's imagination is going to be captured, it's still a route in to start the growth of this connection, and then you can go through this kind of disintegration process of the boundaries, and so this I see this tension between the two approaches. One is to start with completely disintegrated boundaries and no real overarching objective, and the other is to say this is our simple focus point, and we think we can get people engaged through those. So there is a tension in two different ways of doing things.
Myself, I don't find it interesting to try to engage somehow, critical mass of people directly into the network of network kind of context, because it's maybe more interesting for a few specific people who have kind of interest in doing this more of a connection between activities. But still, the critical mass happens if you just take out all those different networks, distinct networks, kind of interacting, so they in one particular group have critical mass, but it's not combining those pockets of bigger smaller groups when there's indirect sort of critical mass. So again, I wouldn't see it desirable that there's 5 million people somehow putting a tag network of networks on their profile or something like that. It's enough for me if there's like 50 people from different networks trying to do coordinate actions, and it's maybe even better when there's less people focused than big amount of people trying to bring 50 million concepts to the table, and it becomes very noisy and then confusing environment. So that's where yeah, I think we have some technical difficulties.
Okay, I feel excluded. Are you writing somewhere?
Oh, just technical things.
You mean you want to write, Simona?
No, it's that I see people not speaking but writing, so I feel excluded.
But you want to write or you don't want to write?
For me, it's if we find one way to communicate, for me it's okay. Whatever it
go
is.
ahead then.
Simona, I was writing on the chat on the side here. Can you see the chat?
I am in one that is like unknown person, James Tanky, but no, I don't see you.
Click on. Okay.
But
click
I don't.
Click on the little, on the left-hand side of the Google thing where you see us.
Yeah.
The second icon is chat, the blue bubble there. There's a green arrow, and above that there's chat. And if you click on that, you'll have the chat column that opens on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I have it open. The problem is that I don't visualize the messages of the people. I don't know why.
Yeah, I have the same thing.
Maybe because we are not friends in Hangout. We are not connected in Hangout, so I don't know.
Okay.
That's strange. And if there's an arrow up there, a cross up there, if you close what you have and you open again, what happens?
It Can I make a proposal?
Yes, please, because I need it.
Yeah. Okay. So my proposal is I see there's a lot of different ideas about the meta, why people will use these things, the meta kind of discussion. Is anybody able to write a small blog post or a comment on Facebook that we can consolidate these ideas a little bit, so that we can look at where they connect and where where there's similarities, and because it sounds like there's a lot of distance we need to cover really to get these ideas out. So I'm willing to write a small blog post about my perspective on this.
And we can add to that. I won't be able to do anything because I'm leaving for the States in a couple of days.
Yeah, I can write my point of view.
And you'll post there where on the Hackpad, or that would be great, yeah.
Yeah, I think the Hackpad would be a good place for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The great thing with the Hackpad is it's interactive. People can comment on other people's ideas. So, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, good.
But you want to say something, Simona? Because I didn't quite get why you were frustrated.
No, just because there was no communication. We found a solution. Because this lack of communication and collaboration is creating frustration. So a lot of people, they work, and they don't achieve maybe the results they would like to have. It's very frustrating when there's no communication. So maybe we can find a methodology to bring this out, to bring out this frustration and make them aware of the need of collaboration to have a concrete impact on the reality, maybe.
There was this format that was used by the Post-Growth Institute of bringing together several players and having a silent meeting on Skype, meaning that every group presents himself and presents needs and offers for a kind of a jam session where people get to know each other. And I found this very, very, very effective, because then it created the opportunity to follow up in smaller groups on different kinds of things. It all is protocols of interoperability and how do you increase the opportunities for people to interact at several levels.
Can I say something? I don't know if you hear me because I am not in the main window. Are you hearing me? Okay. So is someone transcribing this or making a report of what we have talked about?
Yeah, that is the Hangout.
It's possible it's being recorded. The last one was being recorded. Dorothea, is it recorded?
It seems it is.
So if it's recorded, maybe it's good to make a kind of transcription, but not a literal one necessarily, but like a summary of the most important points.
Yeah. I mean, I would like people to summarize their perspective on what they would like to do. So, you know, take it from just what was discussed, but take it on to the next level and say what if we're going to spend some time writing something down, I think we could write down our perspectives on what we want to do. We have the live copy of this, so yeah. I mean, like I say, I'm prepared to write a small blog about what I want to do. Helen, did you say you're not going to have much time to do it?
No, I have to be at a conference next week, and I'm not ready yet on my stuff, so I'm really, you know, I kind of squeezed this one before I left, but
okay.
But I can read. I can't conceive, you know. I can read stuff and add it, but I can't.
Okay, that sounds great. Dorothea, were you supportive of this idea? Are you able to write something down?
Hello, I think I have some technical issues. Can you hear me well? Yes, it's not. There's something with the connection.
I can hear.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you. I don't know about the rest.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great idea. I think if everyone puts something up, it's really nice. Or those who want to. And also, we can keep using the Hackpad, so we can mix the ideas a bit together.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I'll send a message to Pavlik as well and ask him to put some of his ideas down.
Yeah, I'm trying to add him because I think he had a problem with rejoining the Hangout, or someone can add him, maybe, because it's a bit slow here, my connection.
And Eric, do you want to write something down about your thoughts on why people will be using the technologies and how we can engage the people?
I have quite a lot. Yeah, I think I would like to do a presentation as well on my ideas. I might be able to see you in person, Shane, because I'm already in Belgium, but I will be back in about something like a week, and maybe in between we can spend some time together so I can explain. But I will also write down, like I will send everything that I have already. Yeah, we'll do that.
Great.
Good.
Can you put stuff in the chat window? Do you have a link or something that we can have a look at, or Eric?
Well, I'm on iPhone. I can try and send some things, but I prefer to do it tomorrow.
Yeah,
there is my computer. It's more easy than now. It's a bit finicky. If I try to do.
Anyway, the link he sent me, I received, and it's in the
And also, I will have more clarity tomorrow after the conversation I'll have at 3 o'clock.
So let's do that. I think we've got a lot of ground to cover, and it's really an interesting area because we're talking about, one is quite an old school approach, and one is quite a new approach. And you know, how do we marry the two together? I don't know. Or do we need to marry them together? How we marry these two different directions, fundamentally different directions. How do we get the best mix or whatever? I don't know. So let's use the same Hackpad. Everybody's got the address of it, so I'm just gonna make sure we know which one we're talking about. It's the one with the agenda, today's agenda on it. So it's this one. There is another one. Oh yeah, so Pavlik's already added some notes. Yeah, so people are already adding notes here to that. Dorothea, your friend had some comments as well, so it'd be really great if he could add those in there as well. Okay, so that seems like a next steps for this discussion. Irrespective of what happens in this discussion, what I think is beautiful about this group right now is that we are still progressing the practical side. I've been involved in lots of groups where we spend so long time visioning, working out what is the best and most important thing to do, that the practical often gets ignored. And then when we're ready, we know what we want to do, we've run out of energy. And so tomorrow's discussion is really not looking at the practical at all. It's looking at the theoretical at all. It's looking at the practical. So of course, when we get a good position on where we think we are with the meta discussion, that should influence the practical in some ways. For sure, that's the case. But I think we should just carry on progressing the practical stuff because we need to reach milestones that motivate us forward. We need to see practical things being completed so that we get excited about the project and what we're trying to do. So I think it's good that we're progressing both sides at the same time.
That's how I was saying, that's how life is. Stuff progresses in parallel and in complementarity, and that's the way it is. So that's how we should probably learn how to work.
Agreed completely.
That's I think that's the nut to crack. How do you keep the individualities alive and effective, and break the barriers and synergize the complementarities? That's the mission.
Totally agree.
Should I write this down on the chat?
Yeah, please. Or yeah. I think it's an important point. Like I say, I've worked in. So many people are doing this in a linear approach. Get the vision, then we can start the activities, and I think that this has been the cause of failing for many good projects. Okay, any final points that anybody would like to make?
Yeah, just a very practical one here. If please copy everything you got in the chat, because I had a hangout not long ago, and we lost. We seem to have lost everything because the chat isn't saved necessarily. So sometimes it's saved, sometimes it's not. Please copy everything you put into the chat and put it into a document. I don't know, Word or anything. It might be good to create a common Google Drive, I guess, to have documents together in one place by everyone.
So,
yeah, we're doing that. We're copying the chat always, and we have a hackpad that everyone can, like Google Drive, but we can see who is making.
Okay, thanks.
Great stuff. Any more final points? Okay, so a good discussion. I think we've just touched the top of the iceberg of this discussion, and so let's progress this. Let's take the time to put our idea, mature ideas on paper, and then we can look at those and understand where each other is at. so that we can try and bring it together.
Great.
Plan. All right, great talking to everyone. And there's, like I said, there's going to be a discussion, practical discussion on Friday at 1 o'clock, Paris time, tomorrow. And then also me and Eric are going to talk on Monday at 1 o'clock Paris time about the kind of the organizational structures that we ourselves may use, and actually setting up an organization if that's the decision. And again, that's an open hangout as well. So I just didn't post that on Facebook yet because I didn't want to post so many hangouts in one go. I think we'd scare people. Simone, I think you're on mute.
Yeah. So see you tomorrow or on Monday. Yeah, and also if you can.
I can't hear you.
Oh no.
Eric. Okay. So nothing. See you tomorrow or on Monday, and if you can share also the hack pad so that
Simona. We cannot hear you.
No, even if you're unmuted, we can't hear you. Strange.
Yeah, there's something there. I tried to unmute her, but it didn't work. Somehow you can mute and unmute other people, but it's not very clear. Like you know, Helen. Okay.
Can you unmute yourself, Simona? Because we can't unmute you.
It's okay. It's okay. She's placed it in the chat there. So. Okay. Good talking to everybody. Yeah, let's just progress the next phases. Let's meet tomorrow if you're coming and prepare our proposals and on the hackpad and go from there. I'll ask Eamon as well to do the same thing because I know that he didn't manage to get connected, so I'll connect. Send a message to him. Can I just before we go, is there a way of looking at this? What we're going to write about is why will people? What are the needs we're fulfilling, or why would people use this? I think this is the why. What is it? I don't know exactly how to word this, so let's just write whatever we feel. Okay. All right, good speaking to everyone.
See you later.
Bye.
Have a nice day.